Okay, by now I hope that you've had an opportunity to look over the course and look at the due dates. And I really hope that the course fits into your schedule because to an extent it's a wonderful opportunity for you to go ahead and self-pace yourself. Of course, I don't know who else you self-pace up until October 10th. And this will give you an opportunity to submit. But one thing we have to remember, don't get behind. All right, all right. Well, we left the last video with John Hinckley, who had shot President Reagan, yeah, declared the insanity defense, and right now he was declared mentally incompetent, and right now he is receiving some release time. Well, going on to this just a little bit further, we have an individual by the name of Marilyn Vos Savant. Highest IQ ever recorded, 228. Just think of that, 228. And when she did that, that was a disappointing day for me. She beat me by 1 point, but I've learned to live with it. Okay, so what is abnormal? Statistical distress. Does it interfere with an individual's way of life? And that's what we're looking at. We talked about the insanity defense, not being able to control the behavior. We looked at atypical. That means that they are not typical, and we don't know what typical really means for sure. I still like to go back to the definition that I had, is that it is an impairment that interferes with an individual's life routine. And, you know, you could probably shoot holes in that too. But I think it's simplified over what some of the other areas that we're looking at. Now, we know there's a statistical difference. Is it abnormal? We know that there can be culturally different, but is it abnormal? Daily routines, the interference with the daily routine. I think that's one of the things that we definitely want to look at. Just a little bit here of some of the various disorders that we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at anxiety, becoming very, very anxious. Some individuals live in a state of anxiety. And I would imagine that at some time or another, and I'm not trying to put a label on anyone, but we've been anxious to the point that it interfered with our daily routine. Of course, that was going to pass, so that was not an abnormality. Then we have phobias. Phobias are fear, and this is kind of interesting. A real common one is agoraphobia, which is fear of the marketplace or fear of the open spaces. That's agoraphobia. The number one fear of men being buried alive. Now, I don't know who did these studies, but anyway, we're going to look at them like this. But the number one fear of men is being buried alive. And certainly this would be a challenging type of situation to be in. The number one fear of women is snakes. Yeah, I thought maybe it would have been spiders or mice or rats, but it is snakes, the number one fear of women. Okay, going on then past the phobias, we have schizophrenia. That's a psychotic disorder, and remember we talked about neurosis, and we talked about psychosis. Neurosis is kind of a Freudian term. Neurosis is a term that was taken out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM. We have dysfunctions now. It's kind of taking the place of psychotic, but nonetheless, they are still being used. We have a dissociative identity disorder, and that was formerly known as multiple personalities. And that's kind of an interesting study in itself. And just as an example, and I'll probably talk about this, I'll be talking about this a little bit later on when we get into the dissociative identity disorders. But there have been claims made, for what it is worth, there have been claims made that these individuals who have multiple personality disorders actually have different urine tests. I'll say that again. They actually have different urine tests. The validity behind this and the reliability behind this, I'm not even going to go there. But we do find some interesting differences in them. One of them is one personality may be an alcoholic, and the other one cannot stand the taste of any alcoholic beverage. All in the same person, but just a different personality. Then we have bipolar, known as manic depressant, and that goes along with depression and mood disorders. Seasonal affective disorder, SAD, S-A-D. Rates of this disorder can be up in both the summer and the winter. Now, one time it was thought that it was more prevalent during the winter because of the lack of sunlight. But they are finding now that even some individuals in the summer may have SAD, and even though there's a lot of light. And so not quite sure on this, but it talks about, and when we talk about this, it shows us the complexity of what we are dealing with. Now, psychology has a long past, I will say that. A short history, but a long past. And actually, the history of psychology started in 1879 by an individual by the name of Wilhelm Wundt in Europe. I believe it was Germany or Austria. And that is the starting date for history. But as far as the past of psychology is concerned, it goes back for quite a way. Plato, who was a student of Socrates, and Plato really wasn't his correct name, but he was a big guy, and he was a good wrestler, and so they call him Plato. He had a cave allegory that he expounded upon, which I think is very interesting because I think it is true even today. And I'm going to relate this to you, and this will bring the close letter C of the videos. The cave allegory, he basically said that this is what happened. These individuals were in a cave. They'd been in a cave all their life, and they were chained in such a way that all they could do was look at a wall. And behind them was all the action going on. People were walking back and forth, and there was a flame that would cast these shadows on the wall. Now, those people that were chained looking at the wall, this is all they could see, is the shadows. Are you with me on this? That's all I could see was a shadow. Well, one of the individuals escaped from this type of bondage, got out of the cave, and couldn't believe what was taking place. Couldn't believe the colors. Couldn't believe the sights and the smells and the sounds. Why? Because he had been chained in that cave, and all he could see was a shadow. And so he ran back, and he told his counterparts what it was like in the outside world. And he said, you've got to come out, and you've got to see it, and you've got to look at it. And the individuals that were chained there didn't want any part of that. Now, this has some tremendous lessons for us. Number one, psychology has been around for a long time. Number two, even in this modern age of computers, of spaceships, of colonizing maybe other planets, at least the talk of it. of getting in a nice automobile. We still have individuals that are so set in their ways that they don't want to change. The same as what Plato related in his allegory of the cave in around 370 BC. So they had a pretty good understanding of people even then, because we see the same behaviors taking place today. Now, we look at abnormal and normal behavior. Was it abnormal for these individuals to look at the shadows? Was it abnormal for the individual to break away and see the sights and the sounds and the colors? Or vice versa? Were the individuals who were looking at the shadows, was that normal or abnormal? Individual that broke away, was that normal or abnormal? We probably can't tell for sure. But one thing that is definite is that we still have individuals that want to sit and watch the shadows, do not want to change anything, because that is what they are used to, and this is the way it's going to be. Okay, this concludes video C. I hope that you're not overly bored. Being bored a little bit is okay, just not overly bored. And we will be visiting again on video D as in dog. Till then, thank you for your attention.